Tom, I was going to ask you what your craziest moment was, but I mean, maybe it's different than this, but the Zimbabwe story seems like it would be
killed.
Almost, that seems like that would be the craziest story. But is there anything different that you would say, no, this was actually even crazier?
If there wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. So, I mean, I get a lot of crazy stories. I'll never forget riding on the sled in the Arctic looking for polar bears, All I had for sight pins was toothpicks because they'd all broken out.
Oh, shit.
All my sight pins were broken out of there from falling down in the snow, falling on the rocks. Long story short, I get about 10 steps into the middle of this thing and the whole snowpack gives away and starts sliding down the mountain.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast. This is episode number 380. I'm joined by my buddy, Matt Drury.
And you're Tim Chelsvik. You've been MIA for a couple episodes.
I know.
You're almost like a guest host now.
I should get paid.
No.
What? I get paid in First Form Energies.
That's right. Yeah, there's a whole cooler of them.
Drink up, buddy. No, it's good to be back. That Matt Light episode that you did, that was legit. Like, you can stand on your own 2 feet. You don't need me.
Well, thanks, Tim.
That was good.
He's awesome, though.
Even for non-football. I mean, it was mostly about hunting.
Yeah, it was 99% hunting. But he was a great guest, though, because he's been, he came to Mark and Terry's turkey camp, I don't know, probably 25 years ago. And we've kept in touch ever since. He's just a good guy. So
most of these guys who are known for football, they love talking about the other things that they're passionate about. Like hunting.
I found it funny because he said he never watched a sporting event, never watched college football until he was playing college football.
Yeah, it's kind of your job.
Yeah.
And so anyways. Okay, so this week's show is a major treat. Like, I'm already geeking out. We're talking to someone who has been a pillar of the outdoor industry for years. Like, his middle name is work ethic.
For sure. And he's definitely one of the forefathers on the television, the production side.
Yep.
And really, it's a very interesting story. If people don't know who he is, go check him out. I'd say just maybe the younger generation, because certainly our generation and older, everybody knows who he is. So give him a rundown of some of the accolades here.
If you grew up watching hunting and fishing on ESPN, you know who we're going to be visiting with. So we've got Tom Miranda this week. He is an author, a trapper, an adventure bow hunter, host of Territories Wild, and probably one of the most decorated hunters in hunting history.
Not just hunters, but archery hunters specifically.
Yeah.
Tom, what's going on, man?
I'm doing great. Listening to you guys. It's been, it's interesting. I don't do a lot of these podcasts, so it's kind of fun to be watching it all go down, actually.
I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. I know there's much more important things than jumping on with us. And, one of the things that when I kind of, look for guests, we touch base, it's probably 6, 7, 8 months ago now, and it was right before hunting season, so it was terrible timing because you're traveling all over the place, and it's one of those things where it's like, man, I know I should reach out in the off season because guys like you, once the season hits, you're I liken you like a Jim Shockey, you're off and running, and there's no catching up to you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to jump in and dive into this podcast with us. And there's about 1 billion and one things I think we want to talk about. But in general, as I went to your website just to kind of get some of the highlights, it's really mind-numbing to think of how many archery hunts across the globe you've been on to have the type of accomplishments that you've had. This, Grand Slam, Archery Super Slam, Whitetail Slam, the Super 10, all these things. As a flatlander from Missouri, that's just been out west once for an elk hunt.
I walked 200 yards to my stand. And
it really is. When you start thinking about how hard the type of hunting you're doing is compared to what we're accustomed to, turkey and deer hunting in the Midwest, it's really something. Like, when you look back at that, how's it feel now when you're on this part of your career thinking, holy cow, I've really accomplished a lot?
Well, you don't really think about it when you're doing it. I mean, it's every day is a new day. Every place is a new place. I always started out with the aspect that I wanted to do these adventure hunts. I wanted to go somewhere I'd never been and hunt an animal I'd never seen. And so I never really stuck to doing a lot of elk hunts. I've shot a lot of whitetails, though, early in my career. But that's because we have a lot of whitetails to shoot. It's fairly inexpensive to go whitetail hunting back in the 80s and early 90s. And so when I started doing the adventure show on ESPN, where I was bungee jumping, skydiving, rock climbing, doing all those things, and we were also doing bow hunts, which was my forte, I wanted to do different things. And I wanted to take people along with me and try to do something different every day. And it just adds up. It's attrition at one point or another. I mean, seriously, look at all the deer your father shot, over the years. I mean, it's attrition. I mean, if you go out to the woods every day, if you go on the trips every day, every week, every month, for year after year after year, 35 years of doing TV shows, you only have to shoot one a year to have 35. So for me to travel to Africa or travel to Australia or New Zealand or anywhere and hunt, especially with a bow, it's tough. Especially with the camera, as you guys know, it's very tough. A lot of the animals are spot and stalk, but it just all adds together, and you just do one at a time. You just do one at a time, and you tick the box, and that's what I did when I started doing it. I wanted to do one of this and one of that, and pretty soon I had 14, 15 different North American, and I thought, gosh, Chuck Adams did the Super Slam, the very first guy in 1990. I had him on my ESPN show early on, and I thought maybe I could do it. And so I just did one animal at a time, but I filmed all the hunts, which made it extra unique.
Yeah. Are you the only one that's ever done that? Filmed every single one?
As far as I know, getting all the kill shots and all the hunts and the storytelling, my Adventure Bowhunter Super Slam DVD set and Blu-ray set is the only one. It's the only one that's everybody that I've gotten all. Now, Fred Eichler, has the Super Slam with a recurve bow, and he shot a lot of them, but he didn't get them all on video.
Yeah.
And of course, some of the other guys, they walk away from the camera. Jim Shockey has a Super Slam with a muzzleloader. He didn't even get all of his on video. So it was a monumental task. And you're tied to the cameraman when you do it, because at the end of the day, if it's not on video, it didn't happen. I mean, it's not radio.
Yeah.
So that's how I always looked at it. And the cameraman gave me the okay. And there were a lot of do-overs. Sometimes I miss. I'm not the best shot in the world, and I make good shots, and I try to make clean shots. But when you're filming every shot, this isn't like Outdoor Writer of America, where you just get the kill shot picture and you write a big story about it. I mean, you got to have the shot, And I mean, your family has lived the dream, of trying to get whitetails on video, and I just expanded from whitetails and tried to do all the other animals. That's all.
Was there a point where, and making this decision to say, hey, I'm going to do everyone on camera, was there ever a point somewhere in between there that you said, maybe I don't need to do it? Or it was just like from the first one to the last one, you're like, no, I'm committed to doing every single one of these on camera, no matter what the circumstance?
Well, it didn't start out trying to get them. I just started out trying to make shows.
Sure.
You can't make a TV show without the kill shot, right? So at the end of the day, you work and work and work until you get that show done, and you work and work till you get the next show done, and you just keep going to a different place and hunting that species, trying to get as much stock footage as possible, get your kill shot, make your show. And like I said, I was like 14 animals in, which is almost halfway to the 29 before I realized that, man, maybe I could be the first guy. Maybe I could do this. And then it became an obsession after that. So you just go and you work and you try, and you don't quit. I had to go on. I mean, my last one, number 29, was a desert sheep. I had to go 4 times for desert sheep.
I just watched that actually on your Facebook page. I was kind of perusing through there, and it was interesting because you mentioned a couple misses and some blown stalks and stuff like that, and it seemed like it made it just that much more sweet to finally get to the top of that mountain, right? Go. It was nothing like it. I mean, I cried like the gatekeeper in The Wizard of Oz after that deal. I mean, it was a rough go, and I mean, once you start questioning yourself, you start questioning your shot, questioning your sight,
questioning your ability. You question everything when things are going wrong,
Yeah.
When everything's going right. I had a few hunts where I was shooting out, perfect shots, great video. We were done in a few days. 2 of the 29 I shot on the first day. So, and that stone sheep was one of them. That's a very difficult, that's probably the most difficult sheep hunt in North America, the stone sheep, getting to be almost the most expensive now. And, but I shot mine on the first day, go figure. But that's just Murphy's Law. That's just the way things work out.
Yeah.
And, it's fun stuff, and I'm very proud of the fact that I did it. When I originally edited all the shows together, we took TV shows and cut them down, and the original DVD set was 5 discs, and I watched the whole thing all the way through. I mean, it was ridiculously too long, and so we spent another 2 months cutting it down in my studio to make it a 3-disc set. It's still longer than the 10 Commandments, but it's good. And I wrote a book to go with it. So not only do you see all the hunts on video, but you get to read about them too, and see a lot more facts and stuff that we had cut out.
Yeah,
Unreal.
That's the tough part. And you're talking about a lifetime accomplishment, 5 hours seems short.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
five,
it would be a stretch.
5 discs rather seems short, but that's there's an attention span, one that's getting shorter and shorter, as you know from the viewers at home, and so it's tough to, there's a fine line where you're like, well, this was interesting, but man, we really need to cut it out. We talk about it all the time, because even on our semi-live content that we put up on YouTube, where there's no quote unquote time constraints, you still really want to cut it down and expedite some of what's considered the slow stuff to get to the good stuff. But really, that's where all the
drama builds.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's where the tenacity comes in. So,
Tom, I'm curious. So there are a lot of bow hunting geeks that watch and listen to the show, and Matt and I are kind of in that category also. When there's so much pressure, like you've traveled to Zimbabwe to do this hunt, so much pressure to make the shot. I'm curious if you have a shot sequence, and if so, what is it?
I think every good bow hunter has a shot sequence, no question about that. It's about learning in your mind and your body and soul that you have to get it done. When you invest that kind of money and time, capital, and just your life to put these goals together, you have to know, and you have to be prepared for it. And I mean, it's like if you're going to be a major league ball player, sooner or later, it's going to be, you're going to be down 1 run in the 9th inning, and you're going to come to bat, and the tying runs on 3rd and the winning runs on 2nd, and you can't strike out. A walk isn't even going to help. You got to get a hit. Of course, a walk would help, but at the end of the day, you got to make it and get it done. And I think that shot sequence wise for me, of course, is a lot of my practicing is only 1 shot. I mean, that might sound stupid, but once you've done a lot of bow hunting, you're only going to get 1 chance. And a lot of the shows, or a lot of trips that I did, a lot of the places, they didn't have targets, so you try to bring stuff. I mean, a lot of times I'd shoot at my backpack, if you can believe that, on some of the big mountain hunts.
Yeah.
We'd go on the top of the mountain, but we'd be getting up from the tents in the dark, and we'd be climbing all the way up to the top of the mountain, and then we'd be hunting sheep. And there's nothing to shoot at. It's all rocky terrain and everything. And you don't shoot your bow for 3, 4, 5, 6 days. It might take you 2 days to fly there. You drive to camp in the dark, you set up, and you don't really have a chance to practice. It's not like going out and taking a few practice shots before you get up in the tree stand. It's not like that. And so, anytime you can get a shot, it's good. And so a lot of times I got to the point where I'd practice a lot at home, but then I'd only take 1 shot, and that shot had to count. And I mean, you learn that you got to get it done with that 1 shot. And it's a good rule of thumb. If you've got all your mechanics down and you feel like you can get it done. And it's another thing that I always did was I always took the first good shot opportunity. My range, my comfort zone was 60 and under.
Okay.
A lot of guys now are shooting 80, 90 farther on some of the sheep hunting and, the big animals and whatnot. But for me, it was always less, and it looks farther than it is on TV anyway.
Yeah.
And of course, it is all about ethics and responsibility. If you're going to do a television show and promote the sport, which is what I did, you have to have a really solid ethical platform to work from. And I've taken some frontal shots on TV. I've taken some crazy shots on TV, but we always shot out. And I only shot when I knew I could make the shot. And yeah, there's times when the animal turned on you and you had to look for them for a few hours,
Yeah.
and things happen when you're bow hunting. But that's real hunting. It's authentic hunting. And that's what people really want to see, not this fakey, canned, don't show the misses. I showed all my misses. And that's what you have to do to really keep the ethics alive and keep what you're trying to do alive. And also for your credibility. I mean, credibility is everything. I mean, you only have to make one mistake to lose all of your credibility. And so, and I've kept my nose clean, and I've done a good job with that. And I'm really excited to still be bow hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you mentioned being an ambassador for the sport, and I think you've done a fantastic job at that for a long time. But I even think back to like when I was in high school, I brought my bow to school for archery class in PE. I'd put my compound bow in my locker, and it was no big deal. You were on ESPN, like TNN used to have hunting and fishing shows. I just wonder like how as people continue to niche off into their own echo chambers and hunting falls out of the mainstream. How do you see that, like the trajectory of hunting, and how do we be the best ambassadors in a world where people just keep going into their own echo chambers?
Television industry, as you guys know, has really changed. It's a lot different than it was before. And of course, to reflect on the ESPN days for me, I mean, it was like little league to major leagues for me, because I started a TV show in 1990 on Sports Channel America. I had it on for 2 years. It was called Outdoor Adventure Magazine. And I submitted some tapes to ESPN. And to make a long story short, they said it wasn't good enough. And so I submitted some more. I re-edited some material and sent it in, and they said it wasn't good enough. And finally, I called this guy. His name was Bill Fitz, and he's passed away now. But he was actually a big-time producer at ABC. You know, ESPN was formed in 1986, and it was formed by ABC executives from the wide world of sports. Anyways, he turned me on to a producer lady that was doing all of the biographies for the Olympics, and she was really good at what she did. And she lived down near Miami, Florida. I went down and met her, and I took her on 3 different trips, and she taught me how to make a TV show for ESPN. And that's how I got on there. And it was very blessed. The first season in 1992, they gave me 8 episodes, and they said if I can get the ratings, they'll keep me. But my show was Outdoor Adventure Magazine, so I did hunting, fishing, and adventure. And so there was 3 different mini segments each week, and my ratings were fantastic. And I ended up with 20 years on the network, and I had 5-year contracts with ESPN toward the end. And all the people at ESPN liked me. I mean, ESPN's changed now, but back then it was really a cool place to be. I mean, it was the best place to be. But it was because I was genuine. I was a trapper that had been a hunter, and I wasn't a sports or an athlete or somebody who was just hosting a show. And they liked that down-to-earth, person, because if they told me they didn't like something, I changed it.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people would push back,
Ego. Yeah.
I don't know that I actually answered the question that you had, but that's the direction that I took. And as guys look today in the industry, it is changing. It is going to more digital, more podcasting, more of the social side of it. And less and less and less people are watching the TV shows. I mean, I have a fun story if you have time to hear it.
Oh, we got time.
When I first got on ESPN, I was doing these videos just like Matt's dad was doing. I was doing this video. I made this video called Bucking the System. It was a deer hunting video. And I couldn't get all my sponsors on ESPN, but I had landed those 8 episodes. And I thought, man, oh man, I got to make some money doing this, because I was not making any money. It was like I was losing big time, but I was there, and getting there was easier than staying there. I can tell you that. Yeah. But so I decided to make this commercial, 30-second spot, and run it for this video called Bucking the System. Okay. I mean, I didn't even have a 800 line or anything, so I put this commercial together. I got an 800 number. And I finally figured out at the very end that I needed to get a service to do it, because somebody at ESPN said, you better have a service do that if you're going to do this thing. So I had a service do it. Long story short, I sold 800 videos in 1 half-hour show. Oh. I had to box them all up myself. I didn't even have that many in stock. I had to order dubs of these VHS videos, order envelopes, box them all up.
And you could have been answering phones
videos.
too. Hello, this is Tom. Yes.
Yeah, unreal. It was that, but that's back then. I mean, that was
moved
how
the needle.
we did it, you know.
I was going to ask you if you remember what kind of ratings those days at ESPN, what kind of ratings were you getting? Like, meaning how many people were watching a show, a half-hour episode?
I would say probably my best ratings was like 1.8 million for one Saturday morning. But we were around 900,000 to 1.2 million pretty much every week. Because it was a block of shows. Remember, it was ESPN Outdoors. So it was just, and that was Saturday mornings, and it was 7 to 11. So 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11. So there's 8 shows. So that was it. There was a time on ESPN in the late 90s and early 2000s when I had 3 of the 8 shows on the show, producing shows for other people. And that's where I really, I should have started a business and did something a little bit different and then promoted it on those shows. And I didn't. I promoted my editing and television work. So I made most of my money. The money that I used or was able to use to do all the hunting, because I didn't take any free hunts. I paid for all my hunts. And so, but I made that money by producing other people's shows.
There's just such a generational difference that was like ESPN Saturday mornings was appointment TV for my family. Like, we didn't really watch sports a whole lot, but it was hunting and fishing all the time. And then flipping over to TNN on Sundays, like, it's just, I have such great memories of that. And it's just funny how that was such a part of, that was like our normal cable package. Now like Outdoor Channel and Sportsman Channel, like, it's a little, my mother-in-law has no idea where the show Natural Bornish. I don't think she believes that I'm on TV because she can't figure out what channel it is. It's not coming in over there in Springfield, Illinois.
It's definitely a much different climate than it was, but there are a lot more ways that people can consume their content now, right? So it's diluted, but there's a billion ways that people can find. You go to YouTube and type in anything. You can a billion different podcasts out there. The networks are still out there. The social media side. So it's diluted. You can still get it, but the problem, I think, is more of that there was a gatekeeper, I think, in the what would now be looked at as the golden age of the outdoor industry. I would think, in those 80s and 90s, there was a gatekeeper, barrier to entry, so to speak. So the quality was king. And unfortunately now, I think the issue is, because there's so many ways that so many people with a phone in their hand can get content out there, it's not only diluted, but the message isn't always the most ethical or the best reflection of hunting as a whole. And that's something that I think has created a lot of issues for us as well as a industry goes. I mean, what do you think, Tom? Because you've used social media in a great way to continue to promote the history of hunting and promote what you're doing. But I mean, how do you see that climate, today, and YouTube and the podcasts and all the stuff that people, the places they can get their content?
Well, back in the day, all we had was our show. We really didn't, unless you wrote magazine articles and could run some ads, or you had your own business and you're selling products, whether it was arrow shafts or broadheads or whatever. But now, and it's a career, today, you have, there are guys that own big businesses and they have extra money, and so they can film their hunts and they can hire somebody to edit their shows, and then they can have a TV show, but their actual business is something else. Whereas when you got started, and like when I got on ESPN, I had to buy 2 Betacam cameras, and I had to edit in a big studio because we had to send the tapes in on 1 inch, so it was all real high quality. It was very expensive. And there was a time when I had 5 HD cameras and 5 full-time cameramen and, a huge studio and the whole thing. But you build up to that. But it was expensive to get in. There was a high level to get in, and there wasn't very many spaces. There was only room for 8 shows on ESPN, for example. And that was it. And of course, there was not a lot of shows that were doing 52 weeks a year. You know, a lot of, you know, the fishing shows were seasonal and the hunting shows were seasonal, and that's kind of how it worked out. But now, you know, if it's your career and you're trying to make money doing it, now it's a little bit different, and you have to have more buckets. You know, you have to have that monetized page and social media. You got to have that YouTube channel monetized. You got to, you know, you've got to do the endorsements, and the endorsement deals are a lot smaller than they used to be. You know, some of my endorsement deals were 6 figures when I was on ESPN. Now you can't, you know, 20 endorsement deals aren't 6 figures. You know? So it's crazy what it's changed, but it was big money to be on there too. So it was, I mean, it was major leagues, you know, just buying your airtime on ESPN, it would, you know, back in those days, it was crazy money, but it gave you the opportunity to make money if you were willing to take the risk, and you had your chops and you had good shows, and that's what it took.
And a business acumen, whether you had it or not, you probably learned the hard way sometimes. And then there's just a gut instinct, I'm sure. And some of it, Mark and Terry, you know, we were talking, you and I, on the phone yesterday, and talked a little bit about, you know, the early days. I think you had, we've talked about on the podcast before, a guy by the name of Sheen Ray, and, you know, he was a pretty savvy guy, but he was the guy for VHS tapes back in the day, you know, in the 80s. And that was the barrier to entry. And, you know, it's just interesting because along the way, there was a couple guys like that really helped build the industry, but their business practices may not have always been on the up and up. And if you weren't, you know, you're coming into a green, you didn't know any better. You take the deal that you get, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sheen, you know, he was the king of the retail video market, and especially rentals. He would sell to mom and pop rental stores. And I mean, the reality of it is he had worked out a deal with this prison, and these prison people that were on their best behavior or whatever were doing the phone calls, and they were calling all these places to sell videos. And I was selling trapping videos there then. I mean, that was before even I was making any hunting videos at all. And yeah, Mark and Terry had their videos there. They were them, you guys, and myself and Roger Raglan were some of the very, very, very first ones. And, you know, then Sheen started his Quest production group and all the rest of it, that, you know, to try to get as many different titles out there as possible. You know, so some guys didn't have the best scruples back in those days on how they put their shows together or their videos or whatnot, because it was more about mass production. The more videos you had to sell, the more you would do. And I think I only did 8 or 9 videos back then for him in hunting world. But trapping videos really worked out well for me in my business as a trapper, because I was selling lures and scents and books and giving trapping lessons. And by making these how to trap videos, and guys could watch them for $1, they would all buy your stuff, you know, and they'd catch your, you know, guys would catch their first fox on your fox lure, or their first coyote on your coyote lure, or they catch their first mink. And then they were locked into you for life, you know. And I mean, some of these awards hanging behind me are the Hall of Fame awards for the National Trappers and the Fur Takers of America, because I was one of the first guys to ever make a video, a how to trap video. And it basically started a whole new generation in the trapping world of people thinking that they would go out and film their trap line and then sell the videos and try to make extra money from that, especially when the fur prices went down. So yeah, it's Sheen, it was a good deal for me, because I didn't make a lot of money on those videos, but I got so many clients because I sold tens of thousands of, Sheen Ray sold tens of thousands of those trapping videos for me, and they were rented a lot. And I can remember a quick story, not that all this is about, you know, making money, but it always was for me, in the sense that it was my career. And I mean, my kids had to eat. If I didn't, you know, my shows had to be good, my kids had to eat and go to school, and I had to put them through college and all the rest of it. But I remember one of the first catalogs I ever did after I'd gotten those videos into Sheen. Sheen's put those videos in for me. And the very, very first big catalog I ever did, I got literally, you know, crazy number. The whole mailbox was stuffed full of orders. And, you know, it was tens of thousands of dollars an order just in like a couple of days when my catalog first hit. And it was just because of those videos out there and the promotion that that he had.
Yeah. Yeah. So the trapping side of it's interesting. So you grew up, you grew up in Ohio and you grew up trapping, and I mean, you got some really iconic pictures of you with the plane behind you, you're flying your trap line and all that. Like, I mean, where's that passion start from the very beginning, and then how did you evolve into the hunting side of this? Because Tim and I were talking about it just a little bit ago, and I was thinking about it myself yesterday. It's like, man, to see where you started and then where you ended up globally hunting every continent and everything out there, it was a big leap. And I was just really curious how you started from where you started and got to that point.
Well, I started trapping when I was 11 years old. And it was just awesome because, of course, I come from a middle-class family in suburban Columbus, Ohio. And, of course, in the summer, I had to get a job to mow grass or, you had to make your own money. That was how it worked. The allowance was slim. My parents gave me everything I needed and some of what I wanted. But most of it was learn how to work. And trapping to me was awesome because I could check my traps and the animals that I caught would be like a month's worth of mowing grass.
Yeah.
So you could make when the fur prices were good, you could really do well. And it was just a dream that every morning was like Christmas. You didn't know what you were going to catch. And so it was really addicting to me. And I wanted to learn how to be a good trapper. And so all through school years, I trapped. And my parents were very lenient with me as far as school grades and homework and all that. So, I mean, think about it today. I'm 11 years old and I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm going outside with my hip boots on and I'm walking down the railroad tracks and I'm going down the river and checking my traps and then come back and then catch the school bus and then skin at night. Most parents wouldn't even let their kids out at 4 o'clock in the morning.
I can't
by
fathom
themselves
that.
to walk down the railroad tracks, right?
And most people don't understand how hard it is to flesh a pelt to take the time, and you got to go out there every day and despite the weather and where does that work ethic come from? Because not everyone has that.
That's the whole key to my success, honestly, is that's where I learned that you have to follow your passion to be successful, the work ethic side of it, and you can't quit. And trapping is the ultimate outdoor exercise, I think, because you have to really understand sign, tracks, trails, and you have to be dedicated to it because not only do you have to buy expensive traps, you got to find the places to set them and permissions, and then you got to check them and skin the animals, and you got to check your traps pretty much every day. So there was a lot to it, and that work ethic is what made me the bow hunter that I am today. There's no question about it. That don't quit work ethic, get up early, stay late, and just get it done. And that was the key. And it applies to all parts of life. I mean, anybody who is an outdoorsman that's dedicated to it, whether you're bass fishing or whatever you're doing, deer hunting, if you're dedicated to it and it's your passion, you're going to find a place to be successful, and you're going to find a place to have your own niche, and that was, I mean, the adventure shows I did was my niche. That was the way to get in. I trapped and was a professional after high school. I went to Michigan, built a log cabin, became a professional trapper, took lessons from guys, started giving lessons, started writing magazine articles. I'd work in the summer. I delivered pizzas at Domino's. I did, you name it, I did it, whatever it took to make enough money so that I could trap all winter and really learn my trade. And eventually moved to South Dakota, took a government trapper job there. I bought my own airplane. I learned to fly it, and then ran my trap line with the airplane. So, I mean, it's all about building your resume and doing the absolute best you can be, doing the best job you can, and learning. A lot of it was just learning. One of the coolest things, this applies to bow hunting, deer hunting, any kind of hunting, any kind of trapping. I used to teach at this trappers college. So it's called the Fur Takers of America Professional Trappers College. I was an instructor there for 10 years. And one of the instructors there was a guy named Keith Gregerson. He was from Roundup, Montana. He was a snare trapper for coyotes, okay? And one day we were talking at the college, and we were just sitting around just, shooting the crap. And I asked him, I said, I said, Keith, I said, what's the secret? Because he was snaring like 400 coyotes in the wintertime, and then catching like 200 bobcats.
Wow.
Bobcats were $100 a piece, so he was making some coin and doing a good job. And I said, what's the secret? There's got to be a secret. I mean, I'm trapping, busting chop, doing what I do, but he was a step above out in Montana compared to what I was doing. And he goes, here's the deal. He goes, find your most successful place where you've caught animals and the most successful set that you've used, and look at that place. Look at where the railroad tracks are. Look where the rivers are, the creeks are, where the travelways are, and what your set was like, and then repeat it over and over again. He goes, it doesn't have to be different. Every set doesn't have to be different. It has to be that same scenario. And if you do 100 of those scenarios and you catch 2 coyotes at each one, there's 200 coyotes a year right there. And so it just like ticked in my head. It was like the light bulb came on, and it's like, and that works for anything. If you're really good at locating deer stands and setting deer stands, you're going to find the right place to hide in the weeds, waiting on a Alaskan brown bear to walk down the river, or you're going to find the best place to set up for an elk, or other species. And when you start traveling to Africa, like elephant hunting or some of these other things that I've gotten to do, all that comes to play. All that comes in your mind. All that you think about, and that where you need to be, how you need to do it. And it's the same with shooting. If you shot, you remember the first deer you shot and how crazy excited you were, and the 100th deer you shoot, or the 500th animal, whatever, depending on how long you've been doing it and how much you do it the same every time. You draw back, you put the anchor good, you take a deep breath and rest and let out the air slow and put the pin on them and drill them, and that's what you do. And so that's, to me, that's it in a nutshell. That's what it's all about.
I was going to ask you how you felt like your trapping skills translate to anything like you mentioned the African hunting. Like, I know a lot of these times you're going with a guide, or you had a guide service for a while, right, over there that you were affiliated with. But when you're actually in it and you're hunting, are you utilizing that skill set from all those trapping days? Whether it's sign or tracks or whatever the case. I mean, is it still kind of like muscle memory in that regard?
Absolutely. It's once you've got the drill down on all that, it applies to everything. And it's the same with the work ethic. It applies to everything. Some guys are used to hunting out of a tree stand. That's what they do, and now the blinds came out. So now they hunt out of a blind. But if you're going to go after the super slam, you got to learn to stalk. And a lot of the elk guys do stalking, but they're calling elk. So they're getting into a good spot. They're reading the elk, they're bugling, and they move, they get in position, and then they're ready, and hopefully they can call them in. Hopefully they can call them away from the cows and all these types and that makes it fun, like turkey hunting or anything else. But when you're hunting caribou or other animals that you got to be on the ground, or sheep, or, some of the other animals that you would hunt to go after a super slam, you got to learn not to be in a tree stand and not wait on the animal to come to you. So you become a little bit more of an aggressive hunter when you're doing that. And if you're going to be aggressive, you better learn to read sight and understand where you need to go. Now, I have done a lot of guided hunts, and a lot of people will give me grief over that because they'll say, well, this guy, he needs a guide. He'll never find anything if he's looking. But a lot of times, when you're doing a TV show and you're traveling to Zimbabwe, you're not going to lease the land and try to find the leopard. You know what I mean? You've got to go with a guide. In Canada and a lot of places, and a lot of bear hunting and that, you've got to have a guide. But a lot of times, we'd have meetings and say, this is what we have going on. This is what we're doing. And so I'll tell the guide, I'm going to pick your brain. You're going to be the star of my show, because I'm not the star of my show. It's all of my guests are the stars. But when it gets time to make the hunt, you need to step back, and we got to do the deal. We got to get my cameraman and me and got to get in there, and we got to go get this animal, and we got to get this done. So having a buddy or having something to help is great, having a guide, and you learn so much. I've hunted with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of guides, and I've learned from every one of them, because they know the area, they know the leaves and the trees and this and that and the travel ways. And you look at a lot of those places, and you remember and you learn, and you remember from trapping and all the rest of it. And it's just applying all those things together to adapt. And to do like what I've done, the resume that you end up with, not only all the trapping and the long liner trapping and flying your airplane on trap line and all that, but all the different species of animals, over 170 plus species of different animals all over the world. You learn to adapt and you learn to listen to other people and try their ideas too, because the guide might know a lot more than you, likely he does, but you learn that and you put that in the back of your mind, and that's in, you put that in your pocket, and it really helps down the road. And you start to be, have a resume and have people look at you like, wow, this guy does know what he's doing. On TV, it doesn't always come across that way, but you got to know or you're not going to get it done.
Yeah. It seems to be, there are two characteristics in really successful people. Tom, you kind of touched on that. One is a lack of ego to the point of a willingness to learn from anyone, anytime. And just an intense curiosity. Like, I want to learn more. I want to learn everything there is to know about whatever passion you have. And you see, you don't care about being interesting because you're just interested in what's happening.
Absolutely. And it's a problem in our industry, actually.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think they know everything about everything. And I don't like to me, I wish I knew more. I wish I knew more every day. I learn every day.
Wish I knew anything.
So no, it is funny how that kind of works out. And I've met guides like that too that don't have a TV show, but they know everything there is to know about it.
Yeah.
But you got to they know more than I do, about at least about that species in that area. Sure. And that's because I go hunt animals I've never been around, in places I've never been. So, I am the rookie, I'm the rookie there because of that smorgasbord approach to what I'm going to go hunt. I'm not going to just hunt deer. And even like for the whitetail slam, for example, there's 8 different whitetails you need to get the slam, but it's a lot different hunting in the Midwest than it is hunting in Florida or hunting in somewhere else, and different seasons, different everything. And the whitetail too is, I'd say, out of all the species in the world, the whitetail's, if not the hardest, one of the hardest to get, especially a mature buck. They just are. We hunt the heck out of them around in North America, and if they make it to 5 years old, they pretty much got their PhD, and it makes it that much tougher. It makes it hard.
On the whitetail slam, were there, Florida or any of the sections that you were hunting where you did have to do the spot and stalk, or I guess probably out west that would have been spot and stalk, right? A coos deer, or
I shot my coos deer out of a blind.
Okay.
Because you're trying to film it,
Yeah.
So the deer hunting especially, they're sharp, so you really try to set up to get the best footage possible. I was trying to make TV shows.
Yeah.
When I had to stalk, those are harder hunts to do. It's harder for the cameraman to stay steady. You have to also remember my career, was from the late 80s until now. And in the very, very beginning, the cameras were huge, it wasn't like today. Huge, like they filmed the president with, this giant camera over your shoulder. And on ESPN, when we first got on there, we had to have 2 cameramen with us. That was part of the contract. We had to have 2 cameras at all times. They wanted to have that live feel, 2 cameras. And you can't really put 2 cameras in a tree, not now. They got GoPros and they got other stuff, but back then we didn't. And so you do the 2 camera feel, to make it pretend, and that's where you get those reversal shots. That, back in the day when Will Primos used to call everybody, Hollywood.
Yeah.
Remember when Will Primos said Hollywood, he's talking about me. He was
Us
talking about
as well.
ESPN with all the reversals, doing all the cut-in shots.
This ain't Hollywood.
It ain't Hollywood, yeah. I spent many a camp with Will Primos, so yeah, he doesn't hate me or anything. But,
Yeah, we had him on.
I was the guy.
Yeah. We always felt the same way, and we always talked about it as like, hey, it was infotainment, it was entertaining, it was information, kind of all into one package, and we just always felt like for us, what we would like to see. It was a matter of an attention span thing and keeping it interesting and making sure that, the audience was always on the edge of their seat. So I think, a lot of that, like you said, the cutaways and the reversals and all that stuff before the point of view cameras, you just had to recreate all that stuff. And we're not actors, unfortunately.
Well, if anybody ever watched the Truth videos back in the very, very beginning, they'd be hitting fast forward so much that you only could play the tape 3 times and you'd have to buy a new one. So yeah, those are pretty boring. You'll sit there and watch for hours and hours, take 15 minutes for the deer to come in.
Yeah.
They learned after a while to speed it up with dissolves and make it happen a little quicker. But at the end of the day, well, TV, I was one of the very first bow hunters on TV, back in the day. Dave Watson started after me, and he had a show. Ralph and Vicky had a show, but they was after me, on ESPN, the only other show that had bow hunting on it that was on there before I was Wayne Pearson. And he didn't do much for bow hunting himself. He did bow hunt, but not many episodes. And but he had a 3D archery tournament that he played on there. So yeah, it was groundbreaking back in those days. And a lot of people learned. You'd be surprised how many people message me or find me on social media.
I'm sure.
And just say, not only that they watched my show before, but Pat Reeve used to be my cameraman before he had his own show. All those guys got trained up. I'm sure your dad knows the same thing about that.
Yeah, we got quite the tree, of the Kiskies and Lee and Tiffany and a bunch. But that's the fun part of the industry, is kind of looking back to see what spawned from those early days. Certainly, so when you look at everything. You go out and you start hunting the big game species over in Africa. What was that like, that change of, an Ohio boy that moved to South Dakota that ended up going all the way to Africa? And it's such a different world and obviously different species, different feel altogether. What was that like? And what was maybe the pinnacle of hunting over there? Because you said you went over there, 61 times?
Yeah, and I go over there in a couple of weeks again. I do have still a bow camp over there, so I take hunters over. Hunters come over to hunt with me in my camp in South Africa. I go 3 times a year. I've been 61 times to Africa. The honest truth, I went to Africa for the very first time in 1989. 1989.
Pretty
was my
early.
very first trip. But I didn't even want to go. I just didn't have enough shows. I didn't have enough shows in the can. And when it gets spring, if you're not going to turkey hunt or bear hunt, you pretty much can't hunt anything else, So unless you went down and did some exotics or something in Texas. So I ended up going to Africa my very first time, and I really liked it. And it was fun, and I enjoyed it, and I had good success. And I shot my first Cape buffalo. I went after the big animals the next year. I shot my first Cape buffalo in the next season, in the next year. And I think I shot I darted a rhino in 2002. That was the second one of the big 5. And then in 2005, I did the hippopotamus, which isn't part of the big 5, it's part of the big 6. Because the big 5 is elephant, rhino, lion, leopard, and Cape buffalo. And then I did my elephant in 2007. The funny story about that was I got this opportunity to go on this hunt in Zimbabwe for a damage complaint. Even back in those days, elephant hunting was somewhat taboo, and ESPN is, they're like looking at me like, you're not going to really do this, are you? Kind of a thing. And at the end of the day, I had to take the hunt or not, get on the jet and go, and I did. And I got a special permit to bow hunt, and we stalked the right animal. This elephant was coming into these crops. And it was a banana plantation, and it was pulling the banana trees out and eating all the bananas and the leaves off the tops, and just like celery. And these things are huge, 10,000 pounds, a big elephant. And we had to find that. The trackers had to find the right track of that damaged elephant, and we had to look for that track. And so we would drag the roads. We would cut these mapani trees down and tie them behind the truck. Then we'd drag these roads all around these villages. And then that would do it in the evening. And in the mornings early, we get up at just daybreak and we drive the roads real slow. And a PA or one of the trackers would sit on the hood or on a little chair out on the bumper, and we'd look at the tracks. And when he saw that print, that elephant print that was the one we were after, then we would get out of the truck and we'd look. And we looked for days and days and days. And I didn't think we were even going to find it until we finally found it. And then what you do is you get all geared up and then you just follow the tracks and walk and walk and walk. It's 95 degrees and you're walking for 15 kilometers to try to find this thing. But we finally found it, and it was sleeping under a tree. And when you're bow hunting, you want to try to have some sort of a barrier between you. But there wasn't a lot of barriers, but there was a pile of rocks. And I got up in this pile of rocks and we just waited, and we waited probably 30 minutes, and it was just scalding hot. Everybody was getting sunburned. I had to be super quiet. But then finally this elephant woke up, and when he stepped out from under that tree, it was just too dangerous for us to go in. And I mean, we could have went in and tried to shoot him, but if he would have turned and charged, they would have had to shoot it with a rifle, and then it's not a bow kill. So we have to, you have to try to make a clean kill I wanted to have an archery kill, and they were willing to let me film it and try to do it. And so that's what we did. And sure enough, that elephant, when it woke up, it turned around and kind of walked right in front of me at 10 yards, and I shot him right in the heart. And it was really exciting. I jumped off those rocks after I shot. I was thinking he was going to charge us, but he turned and trumpeted and ran off. And he went pretty far. He was up on a mountaintop, and he ran downhill off the mountain, about 600 yards, but we went right to him, and it was pretty interesting.
I'm sure it was like a bulldozer going down through there, wasn't it? As far as a trail to follow.
Pretty crazy. But yeah, then I didn't shoot I shot my leopard. It was a long dry spell. I went on 5 leopard trips before I got my leopard. I hunted in Zambia once, Zimbabwe twice, and then Mozambique twice. I killed out in Mozambique on my leopard, and then I had went there for so many days, and after I shot out, we wanted to try to lion hunt. I had a tag for lion, and we never could get a lion to come to the bait, so I booked a hunt there, and again the next year for 30 days, and went back, and that's when I almost got killed in Mozambique. I got a kidney stone, and we were hunting near the Nyassa Reserve, and I got a kidney stone. I couldn't pass it, and so it was a 3-day drive to the hospital. And so we started driving to the hospital, and on the way there, we got stopped by the military because there were people that were shooting at cars, and they were going to do a convoy. And when we went through this convoy, we got ambushed. And I took a bullet through the door on my side of the truck, over my feet into the transmission, a bullet behind me in the seat, and it killed one of the guys on the back of the truck.
Oh, my God.
And there was a bunch of people killed in that deal. And I actually filmed that with a GoPro, and it's on some of the videos that I've done on Africa. So it's pretty interesting stuff. But it was a close call. But anyway, I got the kidney stone removed and flew back to. I didn't want to drive back. I said, "Screw it, we're going to rent a plane. We're going to charter back."
Yeah.
So I chartered back and ended up shooting a lion. So yeah, I ended up getting my big 5, actually big 6 since I had the hippo then. So pretty crazy.
That elephant hunt is the most iconic hunt that I have ever seen. It's like, as a bow hunter, it's just like, it's fascinating to kill any animal with a bow. Like the process, there's something about it. But to shoot something that is so, like, how big is the heart on an elephant?
About as big as a trash can lid. So I mean, it's like I tell people that the heart's about as big as a trash can lid. So it's like shooting at your garage door, but you got to hit the handle. You got to aim small kind of thing, because it is a big target. And if the arrow hits square on a rib, you're not going to get through it no matter what. I was shooting 94-pound Matthews Black Max. Joel Maxfield at Matthews made me a 100-pound limb bow.
Wow.
I could shoot the 100-pound limb, and the Black Max is a real short 6-inch brace height. I mean, it's just a little thing, real fast bow.
Yeah.
But I was worried I wouldn't be able to draw after all the walking and everything.
Yeah,
and
sure.
so I cranked it down to 94 pounds. The arrow didn't pass through, but it went all the way in. So it was a very, very exciting hunt. Yeah, I'd say, I don't know that I'd want to do another one, but I'll tell you what, conservation-wise, elephants need to be managed just like anything else. And elephants are just going crazy. there's a lot of these activists that are trying to keep people from hunting elephants, and a lot of the governments are caving in and kind of closing elephant season. They did that in Botswana and a lot of other places. But what's happened is the elephants, every 10 years, the elephants can double their population. And so, like, for example, one of the most prestigious national parks in the world, Kruger National Park in South Africa, has a carrying capacity of 3,500 elephants. The last survey in Kruger Park was 35,000 elephants. So it's 10,000, it's 10 times more elephants in Kruger Park, and they're just destroying the habitat. They're knocking all the big trees down, so there's no nesting trees for eagles and a lot of the buzzards and hawks and things that they have, those unique animals. And they're just tearing everything up, and a lot of the species they're driving species out of the park because there's just nothing left. And if you can imagine the carrying capacity, what happens when there's 10 times too many deer in a place? Well, they all get disease and die off, right? Then there's none. Well, that's what's happening to the elephants, and people just don't understand.
I was going to ask you, in your time going there, so since the 80s until now, what types of changes have you felt, or pressures, or, maybe none, but from back home, from, how our society in general has changed as how they viewed that type of hunting? It seems like they'll still somewhat put up with, whitetails and turkeys and stuff like that. They don't like it, but you can still get by doing all this stuff. But it seems like going to Africa is totally taboo now, outside of the small niche of outdoorsmen and hunters that still understand it. They might not ever be able to go there, but they understand it, and conservation and all that. What has changed in that 30, 40 years that you've noticed?
Well, I think the biggest thing that's changed is the fact that I think a lot of, especially bow hunters, I mean, most of the guys that go to Africa are rifle hunters. There's only about a half a dozen really good bow camps in South Africa. I think mine's the best, by the way, which I should invite you guys over. You'd love it. You make some fantastic shows. It's an awesome place, I'm telling you. But I think that the thing is because South Africa's fenced, there's just a lot of people have just kind of pushed away from that. I mean, I take a lot of heat too, like I was saying, because of the guides, where a lot of people are looking at this, DIY hunting, public land hunting. That's the bar that they've put into their hunting, and they kind of push off everybody else that does any other kind of hunting. It's like some hunters don't want you to bait deer, and some hunters don't want you to do this, and other hunters don't want you to do that. Instead of hunters all being together and say, I don't care if you want to use dogs to hunt, or I don't care if you want to bait. If it's legal, go ahead and do it. Hunters start, putting people in, I only shoot a recurve, so Tom Miranda shoots a compound, so he's cheating. That's not really bow hunting. So everybody just kind of splinters themselves into all these small little groups. And it just isn't really fair. It's not fair to the hunting community. It's not fair to the animals that need managed. It's not fair to anything. And it's happened over in Africa too. The places over there are huge. I had a bow camp in Texas for 5 years. Man, I got all kinds of grief. Like, who wants to go to Texas and shoot some axis deer? That's like a, carp in a barrel or whatever. But it's totally not. It's a totally different setup. There might be places that are tiny, small. Nobody's hunting in 40 or 100 or 200 acres. These are all thousands of acres of places. In Africa, it's tens of thousands of acre places, or even hectare acres of places. It's huge land. You might see one animal come in the water hole in Africa and never see that animal again.
Yeah.
And so, it's not that. But I think the fact that hunters have kind of pigeonholed themselves into their own style, and that's what they do. So everybody else, I ain't gonna do that. But to me, it's awesome to be able to go try new things and get out of your comfort zone and visit new places. And most of the people that have watched my shows over the years have come to Africa at least once, have went to New Zealand or Australia to hunt. And I've had friends all over the world from all these hunts that I've done. And these people are just amazing to meet and to talk to, and their accents and the way they hunt and how they hunt and what they think about hunting and the different species and learning about it. I mean, there's just so much. It's a giant Las Vegas smorgasbord of hunting out there. And everybody, gets kind of in their own little groove, and okay, I'm just going to do my deer on my lease, and I'm going to try to shoot this one on trail camera that's like a 170. And that's fine. That's awesome, I think. But there's a lot more out there to somebody who wants to really make an adventure out of it, to take a trip and get on the jet and fly somewhere and do a hunt. In Africa, we still get a lot of guys. I mean, my camp's sold out every year, but I have a small camp, and it's big acreage, but it's a small camp. But I only take so many guys because I don't want to shoot it out. I want to, just only shoot so many animals, and that's it. And it's a lot of fun. I go over there 3 times a year because when I show up at like the end of one trip where guys are there, because people come for 10-day hunts. So I'll come in at the very end of somebody's hunt for the last 3 or 4 or 5 days. And then the next group that comes in, I'll be there. And sometimes I'll stay over for a third group. And so that I'm in camp, so that I'm there and we shoot bow together and we talk around the fire and do all that kind of stuff. So it's, and they go out and hunt, and then they get their pictures with me with their game and stuff like that. So it's neat, it's unique, and it's a grand experience. And everybody that ever comes to my camp always comes back 2 or 3 or 4, some people 6, 8 times. Oh. And they're shooting the same animals over again, but they just like the camaraderie and fun of it.
Are you able to, have you had any issues getting the game back over to the States? Have any of those, laws that they put into effect affected you guys or not? And I'm ignorant towards all, but I don't know any different. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of, what you read is what you know. And so I often wondered, the guys that are going over there, if they're able to bring back what they kill. Well,
some animals are CITE permitted and some animals aren't. We have to get permits for the animals. But most of the basic ones, you can easily get back. I mean, they have to be, the hides and stuff have to be treated. You can't take any of the meat back. A lot of guys will just get them mounted over there because it is a little bit less expensive because, right now the rand's 18-1. So, for example, 55,000 US is $1 million rand. So, I mean, that's maybe a big number, but I mean, you can come to my camp for 10 days, eat like a king, hunt every day, morning, afternoon, night, do whatever you want to do, go night hunting, we can do whatever, and shoot 4 animals. And the whole price with the airline ticket, tips and everything is like 15 grand. So,
okay. It's
not even as much as an elk hunt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know places in Utah that it's more expensive to go elk hunting. So that isn't bad when you think about it in that regard.
No, if you shoot 4 animals, and then plus, I mean, if you're going to shoot like a Bowhunter buck, or you're going to shoot an animal that needs a CITES permit, then you're going to have to apply for it, which we do that. We apply for all that stuff and have the permits. We have to have the permit before you can hunt it. So if somebody says they want to come over and shoot a baboon, for example, that takes a special permit, and we get that permit. We have lots of baboons, so it's not endangered or anything. It's just that some animals need permitted. And once you have that permit, then it's no problem. There are other animals that it's not worth the hassle. I shot a hyena over there on a permit, but I never brought it back because it just was too much of a hassle to get everything put together, to get it done. It just wasn't worth it.
Whenever I think about someone shooting a baboon, I think about the old Sanford and Son, like wheeling around and holding his chest, like, "Oh, you got me." They're just
try to pull the arrow out.
I missed that one.
Sanford Son holds up, man. This is legit.
This just went to PG now,
Tom, I was going to ask you what your craziest moment was, but I mean, maybe it's different than this, but the Zimbabwe story seems like it would be
killed.
Almost, that seems like that would be the craziest story. But is there anything different that you would say, no, this was actually even crazier?
Oh, there's always a crazy story if you're a bow hunter and you're traveling around, And I mean, if there wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. So, I mean, I get a lot of crazy stories, but, I'll never forget riding on the sled in the Arctic looking for polar bears, And then I remember it's just black on the ice on one side of the ice. And I asked my Inuit guide, like, what is that? And he goes, open water. I go, are you kidding me? He goes, no, we can't go. He goes, very dangerous, So we're mushing on. And then pretty soon he stops and he starts setting up the tent. It's just crystal blue sky. And he says, storm coming. We have to get ready. 4 days in a tent. And the wind's 90 miles an hour and 35 below, not counting wind chill. I don't know how cold it really was. 80. One of our sled dogs froze to death.
Oh my God.
It was so cold and windy. but then you end up getting on a bear, shoot your bear. You know, I shot a really nice one, big in the Pope and Young book. So very happy, fun, made a great show. Aired that on ESPN back in the day. So there were a lot of people. I always tell everybody that, you know, my bear didn't have a can of Coke in its hand when I shot it.
Yeah. I can't imagine what your wife and family feels like. You know, like some of these stories are very harrowing. I just wonder, you know, do you ever think like, shit, I'm not gonna make it back? Like this is, you know, these are some scary stuff, you know, spots that you're put in.
Well, I mean, everything's like, you know, everything has its moment. So you're kind of, you know, I'm pretty good at just being like, I'm pretty savvy on my feet when it comes to like what may or may not happen. Like, for example, like I keep my passport, my wallet, all my money, anything. I keep it in my backpack, even when I'm hunting. I don't leave it at the room, leave it in the tent, I leave it anywhere. I always have all my identification, everything on me all the time. I got a little secret compartment in my backpack. I always used to tell my cameraman, if I die, grab the backpack. That's your way out.
Yeah.
Because that's got all the money in it. That's got everything we need to get out of here. So if something happens to me, even if I'm at the bottom of a cliff, go get that backpack. You're going to be glad you did. So at the end of the day, you know, you think a lot about those things happening, but you know that you never really want them to happen to you, but you got to be ready. I was hunting, you know, a lot of this stuff doesn't happen on video because it's spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Another really good example would be, I was hunting my bighorn sheep in the Canmore bow zone, and it's 25 below zero, and we're tent camping 10,000 feet elevation, and we're going up the mountain every day. Well, we're up on the mountain and we're trying to get on this sheep, and he's quite a ways away, and the snow's 2 feet deep, and we were trying to find windy places where the snow had been washed down to where, you know, it was real steep climbing and moving and everything. And we got to this slide area, and this is a crazy story, but so the guide goes across and he puts his footprints all the way across this slide. And a slide area on the mountain is just a place where the rocks always slide down all the time. And it's just a place where you could have an avalanche would slide off or whatever. And the guide said, just be very careful and step in my prints. And so I was next, and the cameraman was following me. And of course, it's the camera, because it was so treacherous, was strapped to his back and strapped to his pack. So he wasn't filming me cross it. He was just trying to keep up and trying to keep the camera ready so when we got on a sheep, we could get the kill shot. Long story short, I get about 10 steps into the middle of this thing, and the whole snowpack gives away and starts sliding down the mountain. I mean, a giant piece. So and so all of a sudden my guide's freaking out. He's like, swim out of it, swim out of it, swim out of it. There's a cliff, swim out of it. So I threw my bow as hard as I could off this big slice. And then I started trying to swim out of it. And I went about 100, 150 yards down the mountain. And it was about another 100 yards, and there was a cliff there. And the whole snowbank went off the cliff.
Ooh.
True story. And so then I'm going to get my bow and everything. And so my cameraman's walking across, and another piece breaks off. And here he comes down the mountain. Shit. And I run over as close. His piece was smaller than mine, the snow piece. But he's going down the mountain, and he throws me the big Betacam camera. He throws it in the air, and I catch it as he goes by. And then he swims out of it before the thing goes off. And my guide, when we finally got back to my guide, he said, forget this sheep. We're going to camp. Because I'm just about ready to die.
Yeah.
Holy heck.
You put like him and Tim Wells in a room. Like Tim has some crazy stories like this.
Jeez.
I just, you know, like I said, couple flatlanders here. I can't imagine any of these stories.
I mean, leave it to a bow hunter to be like, save my bow. And the camera guy, save my camera.
How'd it shoot afterwards? Did you shoot your backpack?
Hey, listen to this. So at the very end, when I shot my sheep, finally, all I had for sight pins was toothpicks because they'd all broken out.
Oh, shit.
All my sight pins were broken out of there from falling down in the snow, falling on the rocks. And so I was using sticking toothpicks in there.
Wow. I just can't imagine it. And that's why I was just fascinated. I really wanted to have you on because I mean, I could only imagine the amount of stories that you have, and you just shared a couple of really great ones with us. So I appreciate that. But that's exactly why I wanted to have him on, because you can't go to that many places around the world and have that many adventures and not have crazy stuff happen to you somewhere along the line.
We need to have a part 2 with Tom Miranda at some point.
Hell, we could do a part just on the trapping with the plane.
yeah, unreal.
I'd love to do it, boys. I'd love to do it. It'd be fun. I've enjoyed this.
That would be awesome. Like Tom, I've got to say, you're a personal inspiration for me as a bow hunter, having grown up watching you, and I have to say thank you so much for being the ambassador that you've been for our sport to people who probably wouldn't have been exposed to the bow hunting lifestyle and passion, but you've done an incredible job with that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It means a lot to me. It's why I did it originally. I mean, how I got on ESPN was going to Jimmy Houston and asking him how he did it. And I told him I wanted to make a trapping show, and he goes, "That ain't gonna fly." And he goes, "Do you do anything else besides trapping?" I go, "Well, I like bow hunting a little bit." He goes, "There you go." And that's how it all started.
Awesome.
I mean, I was a late bloomer on the bow hunting, but yeah, you just don't quit and you keep going. And it's all about bringing other people to the sport. I've been very blessed, and I have a huge number of fans and people. I brought a lot of people into it and switched a lot of gun hunters to bow hunting.
Yeah, good thing you didn't take any fashion like hairstyle tips from Jimmy Houston.
Yeah. Hey, I'd like to tell you this under here is a solar panel for a sex machine, but it is what it is, right?
Work what you got.
Well, I want to say.
All right, we just went to R.
Yeah, hey, that's all right.
It's bound to happen.
We could change the rating. We're about to jump into some of the question of the day and real wild clip of the day, all the stuff that we do on the show. So I always want to give the guests a chance to hop off here. We've kept you pretty long. If you want to stick around, usually another 15 minutes or so. But here's your chance to get the hell out if you want it.
All right, dudes. Well, you guys finish her up for me. It's been a pleasure. Let's do another one sometime.
I would love that. And on behalf of Mark and Terry, I just want to say thank you for the friendship over the years. They've always spoke very highly of you and held you in high regard. And I just want to pass that along.
Thank you very much. And say hi back to them. I appreciate them as well.
I will. All right. Thank you. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. See ya.
Wow.
How about it, Tim?
Tom Miranda.
There you go.
I mean, a living legend. And who knows how many people are bow hunters today because of what he's done.
His stories are great. I thought it might be that. I thought that might be the case. He didn't let us down.
And I had so many more questions. Like, I really look forward to doing a part 2.
Yeah.
You know what? When we go over to his safari camp, we should just bring the recording gear and
what the hell?
do it there.
We can do it.
Show on the road.
All right. Well, let's get into some of the business, Tim.
Let's do it.
We got a real wild clip this week.
This is heartbreaking.
All right. So the real wild clip is brought to you by Tracker Off-Road. Check out the 800SX. The 800SX carries more standard features and more strength than the competition, all at a price point that offers unbeatable value. I was actually in Bass Pro yesterday, and
the Sunset Hills one?
Yeah, it's so nice.
Fun.
It is. And they got a lot of good trackers.
Heck yeah.
All right, so what do we got this week?
All right, let's pop it up here. It's a skunk on top of a fawn, and it's gnawing on the fawn's leg.
Well, and obviously, I've never seen this before. I didn't realize a skunk would be a predator in this scenario. I was asking Dad about it, and he's like, yeah, they're going to dig into the belly area, the soft part there, and try to pull out the guts.
They're kind of opportunists.
Yeah.
And that's what this poor fawn just laying there looking at him, and the skunk is just gnawing away on him. Now,
I should have, and you may know, did the guy filming, did he end up saving that?
I don't know
somehow, because then you're in a real predicament there. It's
do
a skunk.
I stink for a week here, or do I save this fawn?
I would imagine though, he tried to intervene in some way, shape, or form. Most of the time,
to the skunk.
Hey, you,
get off of that.
Back off.
Let's leave those fawns alone.
Yeah. I actually just this weekend we were at the lake for Memorial Day weekend, and there's a wooded area where we parked the car, and there was a fawn. There was a doe hanging around there, and I didn't realize it. I pulled the truck up, and I was dropping off my brother-in-law, and he's like, shit, there's a fawn right here. I was like feet away from running over. I didn't see it. And so I got out and just checked it out real quick. It was good to go. Obviously didn't touch it. We got out of there, and that mama was hanging around all weekend. But I don't know. It's always like, it amazes me how tiny they are. I mean, it was tiny, like the size of a football.
I went to mow a clover plot last week, and there was a doe and a fawn hanging out in the yard at my friend's house, and the doe kind of was stomping around. I couldn't see where the fawn went to when I finally drove up and parked. And my buddy came out. I started talking to him, and I was like, I'll be darned. Look at that. And I'm underneath his basketball hoop. He's got a railroad tie. And
right there.
And there's like a notch cut out of the railroad tie. I don't know for what, but the fawn had laid down in the notch, so it was completely flush.
Kind of protection.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
Because my friend's like, what are you talking about? What? I walked right over to it, and finally he's like, I didn't see it. And he was just probably 8 feet away.
It always amazes me how just Mother Nature in general, that it's a neat cycle to see, but you also have to like make sure you're not interfering.
Yeah,
that's the human nature of going, to just check things out. I got a quick, peeked over, got a quick video clip for the kids, and I was like, all right, we got to get out of here.
Yeah. Let
make sure mama comes back.
100%.
So that's a pretty cool one. Skunk eating a fawn. Never seen that.
Ew. Okay.
Credit Joseph Sengel, Sangl, for that clip.
Hey. Yeah.
All right.
We got a question of the day, too.
All right, so the question of the day is brought to you by Sportsman's Channel, home of Winchester and Drury's Natural Barn. So this week it's from Steph. How do you pronounce her last name?
I think she is a he.
Oh, sorry.
But it's 2024. I hate to make an assumption.
Really?
Steph. No, I love making assumptions.
Okay.
Steph Gomat's a dude. I think he's an Iowa guy.
Sorry, Steph. All right, so he's saying, hey, guys, I'm switching all my radish plots into clover because the deer don't seem to be crazy about radishes in my area. Will this be a mistake for the future, as deer seem to be in clover year-round? I've talked about it at great length, on the podcast. I've switched a lot of my stuff to clover just because it's so warm typically all year round, and at least through the hunting season. And they do really, it is a big draw. Now, radishes, Mark and Terry always talked about, Mark specifically always planted it if he had a specific deer from the year before that he was wanting to chase. That's like early season, typically when he would, encounter him or get him on camera. He likes to plant radishes for that early season period because it's a big time attractant and the sugars break down and all that stuff. So that's the time that, if you got a deer that you know of that you're targeting and it's you're trying to kill in the early season, I wouldn't abandon your radishes necessarily. And what I would also say is sometimes it seems to take a couple years for the deer to acclimate to something that they haven't previously had as an option to eat. So I've had that happen several times where they just didn't seem to eat it, the first year or two. So from that regard, I wouldn't give up if you have a deer early season you're targeting. But in general, yes, I've converted almost, 75% of my plots to clover plots, and I'm leaving the other ones for a fall planting, for radishes or like biologic last bite, which has a little bit of everything. But we've had so little rain in the falls, in the late summer.
Yeah, I guess early September.
It's so hard to grow anything. So that's the other reason I went to clover plots. Now, I don't know when he sent this question in, but we're sitting at May 29th as we film this. It would be extremely difficult for you to plant a clover plot at this point. I guess depending on where you're at, but for the most part, it's too warm already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But just in general, clover just seems to be the lowest maintenance, and just in terms of kind of a general attractability, it's a great default.
Yeah, I went up and mowed my clover plot on my farm last week, and I had neglected it. I should have sprayed it. I should have mowed it, way before turkey season, done all the stuff I should have needed to do, and I just hadn't, and I hadn't had the time to. And but surprisingly, like there's a ton of clover in there. Nice. We had frost seeded it. We planted it last March, and then we frost seeded it. this February, and it's looking pretty good. Sweet. And it's a big plot, so it's going to be a draw for sure.
About 3 years into a couple clover plots in a little suburban spot that I have, and it's finally looking legit.
Yeah, so I've seen pictures, and it looked like it was pretty full.
Mm-hmm. All the rain we've gotten has really helped too.
Yeah. And those timber plots, it can be difficult. Sometimes to get them started and get them rolling, but that's the whole point of clover. A lot of it from a hunter's perspective is that once you can get it rolling, man, like I got clover plots that have been on one of my leases that it's been 8 years where I thought there have been years where I thought this thing's toast, and we get the spray and we do, the maintenance and they just come back.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a low maintenance plot.
Yeah.
This week's Wildlife Word is brought to you by PH Outdoors. The PHG series is a true no-till drill that can plant a variety of seeds and blends into even the toughest soil conditions.
Speaking of food plots.
Yeah.
Paul's the best. Paul Hollis over at PH.
Great dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, killer implements also.
They're well built.
Yes.
Like I know they're a little pricey, but you're not going to need another one. And they're heavy, so they're well built. They're heavy, so it helps a lot in getting the seed depth the way you need it and kind of pushing down in there. I mean, they're nice implements.
Yep, and he's a nice man.
Yeah.
An animal described as this word is active during twilight. Is it A, cervid, B, nocturnal, C, crepuscular, or D, placid?
Well, I'm going to go with B, nocturnal, because that's what every deer I seem to hunt is.
I, too, have had that problem. The technical term is actually crepuscular.
You son of a gun. That was a trick question.
So, yeah, they are kind of the shoulder, that dim light at the beginning of the day and the end of the day.
Oh, God dang it. My skills are terrible here. Twilight. I should have picked up on that.
That's why we have the answer. Because it's about learning.
If you weren't here, Tim, how would I have known that? What would I have done?
Sit in silence.
I would have just told a bunch of people it was nocturnal.
I got answers for you. None of them are right, but I got answers.
Yeah.
Okay, and we got a shout out from Evan Loibe on Apple Podcasts. I assume Evan gave us 5 stars. He says, I've seen the podcast floating around for a while. That's how I like to think about our show. It's kind of floating around in the ether.
Yeah.
Like a corpse.
Little particles of poop running around the sky.
I like corpse better, but like a fart cloud.
Sorry if Tom went back and listened to the end of this. Sorry, Tom.
I'm glad I ejected when I did. I've never been a podcast fan, but I decided to listen to one. Long story short, I've now burned through almost 300 podcasts. Wow.
Hit the old crack pipe.
Wow.
We got him like heroin.
I've learned that Matt can't read. Tim loves to swing in the saddle. Whee! And Zebco reels are great.
Damn tootin'.
It's hard to beat a Zebco. In all seriousness, I love the podcast and all the different topics and guests you have on. Keep up the great work.
I can't read.
And I love to swing in a saddle.
You suck, Matt.
Oh, got our things.
All right.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thanks for the shout out. We need some shout outs. We need some podcast reviews. So if you would, head to the place that you listen to your podcast or download them and give us a quick review, and we'll read it on the air.
Yes,
and we appreciate them. And share these suckers with your friends, and we appreciate that too.
Share these farts with your friends. And we actually have some new rack pack. I need to do better about joining the conversation in the rack pack.
You used to be all up in there.
Used to. Still could. Need to.
I try to.
Yeah, you're carrying the torch for both of us right now.
Man, we had some angry rack packers this week. Old Jim Richmond, he typed in at everyone in a post because a new podcast launched, and you would assume that people in the rack pack who listen to the podcast want to know when the new podcast launched. They did not want that.
We don't need
At least
that
a couple of
everyone
them.
crap.
Yeah. And the guys are like, I listen to the podcast. I don't need to know.
I think that
You'd be surprised how many don't listen.
that at everyone is a letdown because at first you think,
Oh, I got tagged.
Someone specifically meant no. It was everybody.
We're in another group, and it does annoy me when they hit at everyone, and it's like every post. So
Yes.
I can sympathize with the Rack Pack.
We'll use it sparingly.
Sorry, Jim. I didn't mean to throw you under the bus. Jim's a great help, though. Jim has been a great help.
Oh
with
yeah,
everything.
yeah. There's no way we can do
Everybody
the show without him.
Treat Jim nicer, okay?
Yeah, you bunch of
He's got
jackasses.
feelings too.
He does. He has 3 feelings.
All right, so we got some new Rack Pack members. It's a private Facebook group if you haven't caught on. All you got to do is type in 100% Wild Rack Pack, answer a couple questions, and you're in, and we'll read your name. All right. Typically, there's a fake name in here. Typically, I butcher all the names. Let's do this thing. We got Michael Dupes, Dante Gervin. Gervin.
I like Gervin.
Gervin. Luke Warmwater. That's weak. Jim, be better.
Poor Jim.
Luke Warmwater. That must be the fake one. All right, we got Mickey Scott and we got Hunter Brown.
Listen, I used to take 3 days out of my work week
To come up with one name.
previously. Yep. I mean, it was definitely time theft as far as my employment status went.
Hey,
But
I don't even care.
I don't care.
It was well worth it.
Yeah, for that one little nugget.
Because there was a lot of times where it took me a long time to figure out what the fake name
My
was.
favorite was Ali Tabooger. That was a good one. And that was back on the old set. And I
The
remember,
good old days.
I remember you continuing to say, Ali Tabooger? Ali Tabooger? Putting the emphasis in different places. Oh, good times.
Yes, the good old days.
We are children.
All right.
Well, hopefully I have some bow fishing adventures to share with you guys pretty soon. My buddy Tony
Can't
and I
wait.
are going to try to get out. Dude, once we get some good water, we'll invite you out. You can wear rubber gloves and an apron and whatever you want to do.
I just don't care about fish.
What if JP were with us?
I would go.
Okay.
If he invited me, I'd go.
What if I told you that he was going to be with us and you come to the ramp and maybe he got a stomach ache and couldn't?
I would know better because if he was going, we'd be going to a better spot.
It's hard to tell.
If he's going, we're not going to the Merrimack in Arnold.
I met Jared Lurk came to go bow fishing with us one time, and the place where we met up in Old Town Fenton was like where you go to get stabbed and robbed.
Strip bar down the road, old abandoned bar in the corner.
Yeah, it's pretty darn sketchy.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah. So I'd say I would, but I'll have to let you know. But I probably won't. I'm being nice.
sounds like a no.
Yeah. Let me know about it.
Yeah, definitely keep me in the loop on that.
Can't wait.
I can't. Oh, yeah, I never said what
Hey,
day.
I actually shot my bow for the first time this year. It's
fun,
Well,
isn't it?
since deer season, last week. Shot
Sweet.
well, but I
Just-
didn't get crazy. I was just kind of maintenance shots and
You
making
are
sure.
you are saddled with the issue of eventually having to shoot a new bow very soon.
Crimea River, right? But it's
It's a thing.
as a novice, it's a little more difficult to set up a bow the day before deer season starts. And this year I'm going on an elk hunt to Idaho. So I don't think I'm going to take the new bow. I'll
Smart.
take the lift
Yeah.
on the elk hunt. And just so
If it
there's
ain't
no,
broke, don't fix
I
it.
feel good with it. I was shooting it good at the end of the year, shooting it fine now. So what I need to start getting in are reps at longer distances. That's why I started kind of the maintenance side of it, is just kind of getting reps in, but I need to start getting distance and really practicing what could be a reality for a shot out there at 60 yards or whatever the case may be.
Get you a backpack.
Start shooting the
60
backpacks.
yards.
The real problem, and we've talked about before, and you're kind of in this position, but you do have some woods around you. But I got like nowhere great to shoot past, say, 30, 40. I'm standing in my neighbor's driveway. You know, just it's a suburb neighborhood. It's just not a good setup. So not far from me, there's a little archery range. It's actually not bad, but even that, it only goes to 50. So
Now we're gonna get invites from that rack packer who's got the range.
oh yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, Eureka area.
yeah, we should probably.
So I'm definitely going to have to
Re-engage.
find places to shoot. You know, Mom and Dad could always go down to Bloomsdale and I could shoot 100 yards.
If you
down there.
stand at the intersection by my house, you can get 60 in my
Can you?
backyard.
Yeah. I'm sure the neighbors love it.
Oh, they love me.
I'm sure
I'm a
they
treasure.
do. I'm sure they do.
All right. Well,
That's a long show.
it was.
Sorry, Rack Packers, but man, Tom is a interesting guy, so he deserved the time.
Treasure indeed.
All right. Well, hopefully you'll be on the next episode.
That'd be fun.
I never know anymore.
Special guest Tim Chelsvik.
Every time now, you're the special guest.
I am special.
Ed.
Oh,
All right. We better shut her down. Shut her down.
Later.
Until next time, peace out.
Take land management to the next level with DeerCast's exclusive virtual rain gauges. Pinpoint accuracy and historical data, all powered by industry-leading ag weather services. DeerCast has the tools to keep you ahead of your game.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast Maps, waypoints, weather, virtual rain gauges, and more. Every tool you need to get ahead of your game.